59-year-old David Daze finished his 30th marathon this year.
As my own kids came along, I was kind of looking for something that I could do whenever, as in on the spur of the moment, you know, when the kids are asleep or whatnot, that's when I can sneak out the door. And once I started running, I really enjoyed it.
But every year, a few don't complete their race safely. 26-year-old Philip Everson died at the Army Run in Ottawa this September, going into cardiac arrest after crossing the half-marathon line. In May, a 35-year-old man died during Ottawa race weekend, also after going into cardiac arrest.
Each one is a tragedy that for many runners overshadows the joys of going the distance. But does it have to happen?
Marc-Antoine Deschamps has first-hand experience responding to running-related injuries.
Sometimes you will get what's called a cardiac arrhythmia, so it's when the electricity in the heart doesn't follow the regular pattern and becomes erratic. At that point, the person will pass out, they might have a seizure, and then they'll become limp. What's important for them is some cardiac arrests are very sudden. There will not be any precursor signs. The person will simply collapse. However, it's important for the athletes that are running these types of events to be aware of their own body, to realize if they feel something that they never felt before, that is not similar to what they felt during their training. It's important at that point that they seek medical care right away.
Around 38,000 runners participate in Ottawa race weekend. Executive Director Ian Fraser explains the risk.
As soon as you start to scale numbers, the chances of things happening in your event go up by an equivalent magnitude, almost exponentially. So we know that with that many people doing our event, we're going to have things happen whether we like it or not. A lot depends on the heat and how what the temperature is. So we've experienced 3 of the last 4 years abnormally high temperatures on race day, which has resulted in us having to tweak the start times for some of the events on Sunday so that we remain in the cooler part of the day. Those sorts of incidents scale upwards when it gets warmer. So you get dehydration issues, you get heat stroke issues.
Daze says all runners, both newcomers and veterans, should know and take some simple safety measures.
Whether it's a short run around the block or if I'm running a marathon, I always make sure my road ID is attached to my shoe. And my road ID essentially identifies me, and it also identifies my emergency contacts. So my wife and kids' names and phone numbers are on it as well. So if I ever run into any difficulty and someone needs to identify me, this is how they do it, with the road ID. I'm 59 years old, and I've already done 30 marathons, so I'm pretty healthy, and I just make sure I'm well trained going into a race. And typically, if you're going into a marathon, you're training over 12 to 16 week period. And even before that, it's rare someone just decides to run a marathon. Usually they start at a lower distance and then they work their way up. So they already have a certain level of fitness before they start marathon training, which is what I recommend for people is, make sure you have a certain level of fitness before you start marathon training. So if a problem is going to occur, oftentimes it occurs in training. A couple of years ago, I was training for the Philadelphia Marathon, but I came up with some knee problems and whatnot, and I was about a month out from the marathon, and I decided to pull the plug on it because I knew, I was running through an injury, which is never good.
What we do is supposed to be good for people, it's supposed to be fun, and by and large it always is. And we like to think that far and away on average we do more good for the health of our community than we do harm. And the reality around some of the cardiac incidents that happen is that oftentimes these participants, these people have an underlying cardiac condition that they don't know that they have, and they don't really know that they have it until they hit a crisis situation in an event like this. Would that have happened to them at some point in their life? Maybe, I don't know. There's a strong possibility it would have. But if you think of all the people that have change their lifestyle through running, change their lifestyle through getting involved in endurance sport, the positives far outweigh the negatives.
Runners like Daze understand that every time they line up for a race, they may be running a risk.